If you've ever played the full version of Geometry Dash, then you've probably used its level editor. Over the years, the editor has become more and more complicated, allowing players to go from creating simple levels to full-on masterpieces. But while the editor has grown, it has become more and more confusing. More menus have been added, more buttons have been implemented, and with the release of 2.2, there are now triggers that are just completely incomprehensible for players who aren't experienced with the editor. So how can we fix all of this? How can we make the editor accessible for everyone, whether they're joining the game for the first time or for the 1000th time? And what are some extra features we can add to further improve the editor's quality? Well, it's time to find out. To begin, I want to address the most annoying issue with the editor, which is the abundance of buttons and menus. I won't be going through every detail, but I do want to say that things could be better in a lot of places. Take the font selection menu, for example. It is pretty powerful, having 60 fonts that you can choose from, but it only has 2 arrows to navigate back and forth with. And check out the escape menu, over 35 buttons all being thrown at you from every direction. And there are even more if you go into the settings menu. Although, as a fellow game developer, I know that the reason for the amount of clutter is because of how painful it is to go through and change every single button, every single slider to be somewhere else. Or it could have been that RobTop developed the editor the way that he would want it to look, which would work for him, but maybe not for everyone. In my opinion, the best answer is to have a team of developers analyze the different parts of the editor and then make decisions on where things should go, coming to an agreement which works for everybody. But it doesn't have to end there. Having a dev team would allow RobTop to have time to work on new features without having to worry as much about redoing old ones. This would take a lot of pressure off of his shoulders. Now, let's move on to an extra feature that I think would greatly benefit the editor. But first, I should provide some background information. If you don't know how to place down objects, then you click on one of these boxes to select whichever object you want to place, and then click anywhere in this area to add it to your level. Each of these tabs hold different types of objects, whether they're blocks, orbs, decorations, or triggers. There are thousands of objects to pick from. There are multiple pages for each tab, and you can see what page you're on thanks to these dots on the bottom. But on some tabs, there are literally so many objects that the dots go off the screen. And not only is it annoying that you have no idea where you are, but it's also super difficult to find a specific object. So what is the solution to this? It's actually pretty simple: creating groups. If we have multiple objects that share the same design, then put them into a group. Then you can click on the group to find them. I think that this would be a great solution to a pretty important problem. I also had a related idea which was actually inspired by my editing software. I often find myself testing every possible transition or effect that would work for an edit. Usually I find one that looks good, but if I'm not completely satisfied, then I can click on this search button to view other transitions that are related. I love this feature, not sponsored, and think that something like it in Geometry Dash would be amazing. Don't exactly like the block design? Just search for another one that's similar to it. That goes with decorations, portals, collectibles, spikes, slopes, the list goes on and on. Something else that I had noticed is that the edit tab is kind of disorganized. Buttons are just aligned in rows without much thought put into it. Changing the amount of buttons per row can completely throw off the positions of the buttons on your screen, forcing you to relearn the entire layout. And let me tell you, muscle memory plays a big role when creating levels, so this can be very annoying, especially if the only reason you had to switch your layout was because of these 2 buttons. There are actually mods that are out there to counter this problem, such as Better Edit, which I really ought to install, but I think that it would be outstanding to see Geometry Dash itself release an even better remedy for this problem. The solution being, just let the player customize the tab themselves. Perhaps they don't want to have to always visit a different page to access the scale button. Now they could just have the button appear on the first page in whichever area they want. Want to make those arrows that move things by a little bit super accessible? Just put them next to the scale button in a square. In addition to solving the interface size problem we just went over, it would also seriously speed up the level creation process by allowing creators to have the tools they need right at their fingertips. I believe that out of all of the ideas we've discussed over the course of this video, this idea is the one that should be implemented first. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that statement in the comments. But before this video ends, I would like to say that other than that, the editor doesn't really have that many flaws. Building levels in it is a very enjoyable experience overall, and I love how simple the left side of the screen is when going back to user interface. I'd also like to mention that I do not expect these features to be added to Geometry Dash, as it's a lot of work for one game developer, and if he wants to keep the game as his own project, then I completely respect that. He's made an incredible game, and I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of it. I've been wanting to make longer videos for a while now, and I hope that this one was worth the watch. I also want to thank every single one of you for 20,000 subscribers. That's a huge number. I'd also like to thank Theroclonix for being my first ever super chat. It is very much appreciated. And if you have any ideas for the editor, please share them in the comments. And with that said, thanks for watching. Have a great day.